Good morning.
It was coffee.
Good morning.
Sorry, I look for.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have a forum. A good thing. Let's go ahead and introduce members and attendees. We'll start with you, Mayor Bruce.
They're Bruce, Beverly Cedar Fairbanks.
Ryder Hopkins,
Yeah.
Borough Mayor, Fairbanks North Star Borough.
Olivia Lunsford, Cross Planning.
Jackson Fox, Fast Planning. Scott Crass, Fairbanks North Star Borough Assembly. Larry Church, North Pole City Mayor.
And board members online.
Jason Olds, DEC Air Quality.
Patrice Lee, Advocates for Safe Alaska Highways and Citizens for Clean Air.
Yeah, we do see Catherine Keith online. Can you unmute yourself and just identify that you're here for the record?
Okay. Well, Catherine Keys is representing DOT at this point. I think hopefully you can hear us. If you can, if you could unmute and let us know. Before we get started, I was talking to Jackson briefly yesterday, and I can't remember Fast Planning having a turnover this much at one time. We're still waiting for a formal DOT representative. And I remember back when I was on FMATS, my first couple of meetings, it was like people were speaking a different language. It was rather intimidating at the time, but fortunately, we were housing the FMATS staff at the city, and I could spend a lot of time with Donna Gardino and get updated on things. But I was thinking at Jackson that maybe, see what's a good idea, we can come up with a list of all the acronyms that we use. And maybe a one sentence description of what they are. The various. Just to a little bit on the thing, and then as we are a formal board, if we could give each member a copy of our bylaws, a copy of our personnel policy, and also long title, our governmental operating agreement and memorandum of understanding for transportation and quality planning. Operating agreement between the four entities that we have. That we didn't become a nonprofit until
2019.
Evolution of what we did there, so I hope you all would find that helpful. It takes a while to pick it up to speed on next. Any other ideas?
No, that sounds good. Just for the record, I did meet with Mayor Hopkins as well as Mayor Church, to give them an introduction to Fast Planning, who we are, what we do, what their role is in the board. So I have had those meetings and, we'll continue to communicate with them. To educate them on our business.
And welcome. Hopkins, Mayor Church, appreciate it. Looking for approval of the agenda.
Hey,
Move to
sorry to
approve.
interrupt everyone. Yeah, Catherine Keith. Finally got my Zoom to work. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Catherine.
Move to approve the policy board meeting agenda of Wednesday, November 20th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objection to that? Seeing none, that passes. Next item, approval of October 10th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Are we required to do a roll call vote with one member online?
Vote on issues, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, normally, I mean, kids and old is always online. What are you thinking?
That's usually meant that we're unable to use the unanimous consent. We've had a roll call vote at least.
Oh. I was thinking that, I took a liberty there that on the agenda we'd be okay, but.
I agree. I just didn't want to, making sure we're crossing the T's.
Now we can make sure we call full slate. Anyway. Did I get a motion on the approval of the meeting minutes for October?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes for October 10th, 2024.
Did you?
Second.
Seconded. Go ahead and call roll, I guess.
Okay, Mayor Bruce.
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins.
Yes.
Cleaver.
Yes.
Mr. Kraus. Yes. Mayor Church. Yes.
Jason Olds.
Yes.
Catherine Key.
Yes.
Go ahead and hear from Jackson to the staff report.
Yes, this begins on page 7 in your packet. Just want to highlight a few of our project and planning meetings and work accomplished at Fast Planning over the last month. On this first page here, I just want to make note that we have made progress on the conformity determination for Cowell Street. We're all anxious to get that project out to bid so that it can be constructed here in 2025. Likely be at least one more meeting with our federal partners prior to letting that project out for bid. But what we're trying to do is get an exemption for Cowell Street such that if the bids come back high on that project, we have the ability to add additional funding to it to award that contract. So we're trying to avoid risk with that project by going through this process with our federal partners. And then next, I want to make note to the board that there will be a peer exchange between all of our MPOs, the state of Alaska DOT, as well as a couple other peer states. This is North Dakota and Minnesota, their state DOTs, as well as a couple of MPOs, one from Minnesota and one from North Dakota, that will convene in Anchorage on January 28th through the 30th for a 2.5-day session. I will be sending out an invitation to the full board that or any board member that would like to join us, for that peer exchange. I don't expect you all to attend. If I could get at least one board member to accompany me down in Anchorage, that would be wonderful. But I'll get you those details, via email, here this week. I'm trying to provide a list, to the Federal Highway Administration, which is, helping facilitate this by December 3rd. So if anybody, would like to join me, I'll need a commitment by December 3rd on that. Also of note here, the borough has kicked off the Regional Comprehensive Plan update. I am on the advisory committee for that, as well as, some of the other folks here, on our board. We had a really great introductory meeting, to the scope of that effort and schedule, moving forward over the next year and a half to 2 years or so, for this process. And so I will, continue to update you all, on progress of those advisory meetings as they occur. On the next page, we did receive an official letter from EPA Region 10, notifying us of the end of the transportation conformity requirements for our carbon monoxide maintenance area. So moving forward with air quality and transportation conformity, now we only have to focus on the PM 2.5 pollutant concern and no longer have to consider carbon monoxide. So this is a letter that we've been waiting for 20 years. And that period has ended and we're.
Have you framed this?
Yes, right, I know. It's been a long time coming. They provided a similar letter to Anchorage as well. So we're both off the hook for those, that performance going forward. Underneath organization, we have initiated our CPA audit and preparation of our tax return for federal fiscal year 2024 with Alliance CPAs, and much of that work will occur with our auditor next month. And then, as always, there'll be a report back to the board as far as the findings of the audits, and then there'll be a future action to approve the tax return to submit that to the IRS once it's complete. And then under public outreach, the public comment periods have closed for our transit plan updates as well as our electric vehicle infrastructure implementation plan. At today's meeting, we're asking the board to consider adopting the final revised transit plan updates. And we will be in receipt of the final revised electric vehicle implementation plan by the end of this month. And so you'll see that on your agendas in December for adoption of that plan. And then lastly, I did prepare a new obligation report for all of our federal funds for federal fiscal year 2025. And I've highlighted some of those projects or funds that were not obligated last year in 2024, how those funds will be carried forward into 2025 to keep those projects moving forward. And so that'll be at the end of your agenda. But behind the staff report, I do have a letter from the EPA beginning on page 9. And then the last, one more thing here on page 12. We did receive a public comment regarding College Road and maintenance activities. And the individual that provided us this comment asked that this be included in the meeting packets for the technical committee and policy board. So this is just for your general awareness. And page 13 is the action items from the November 6th, 2024 technical committee meeting. 3 motions that directly relate to your action items here today include the first one there. The technical committee did recommend unanimously that the board adopt the transit plan updates, which I'll consider underneath item 8A on the agenda. And then related to item 9A on the agenda, the fast improvement program, the technical committee recommended that the policy board adopt the new project priorities, which we will share with you all when we get to that agenda item, and raising the amount of funding for that program's construction in 2025 from $1 million up to $2 million to accommodate some new project locations and utilizing some unprogrammed funding that we have available to us. And then lastly, they recommended the board approve the 2025 meeting dates for all of our committees.
Make one note there, the second motion is for 9A, not 8A is written there.
Yeah, the technical committee agenda had a different, their numbering on their agenda.
On ours will be 9A.
Yes, correct. And that concludes my staff report.
Any questions?
Jackson, there was another meeting that was scheduled, did that just get scrapped? That was going to be, I think the MPOs and DOT discussing how they were gonna work together. I think it was last week, it was supposed to take place. Did that meeting take place, or did it just get sort of rescheduled into this?
There is a statewide quarterly MPO meeting where all the three MPOs get together with our federal partners and state DOT. That is occurring on December 11th in Anchorage. Is that what you're referencing?
No, it was the federal.
Jackson, this is the original MPO here today was scheduled for the 14th to 15th of
Yeah.
December.
Yes,
That's the January 20th, 30th. So it's not scrapped, we just adjusted the timeline. for
yes,
that.
the timeline of that moved to the end of January. But part of that was my request because we had outgoing board members and new incoming board members. And so we wanted to give our policy board members a couple months to kind of get up to speed on the topics and issues before that peer exchange occurred, so that we would have a full list of folks here to invite to that.
A wise choice.
So that got moved from November to January.
Thanks.
Catherine, keep how's her hand raised?
Catherine, did you have something?
Yeah, just one comment. Jackson, thanks for the report and the call out of the peer review that's happening in January. I just wanted to chime in that really encourage and like a genuine ask of all of the policy board members to please, if you can, make it to that meeting. The Federal Highways FTA, they've made it very clear to us, it's a policy board that is speaking and representing the MPO, and your attendance there would greatly help with conversations, with other states. And there's a lot that can be learned from best practices of these other states. And it's actually catered to, I would say, the policy boards. So if you have any questions about that, Lauren's also been participating in the discussions with them all on the planning and the agendas and could help speak to the intent of the meeting. But thank you.
What were the dates again for that?
January 28th to the 30th. So Tuesday through Thursday.
Thank you.
And we do have a draft agenda, so you can see the intended time slots and use of those 2 days. The first day is very much focused on MPO business. The second day is focused on state DOT business. And then the third day is kind of a recap of all the conversations that we've had.
When will that be taking place at?
In Anchorage, I don't believe the venue has been selected yet.
Anyone
I
else?
believe they're trying to have it at the Denina, but it may be shifting. I mean, sorry, the Atwood building, not Denina.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be that big of a meeting.
All right. We move on. Sigmund.
Number 6 is updates from Alaska DOT on the statewide transportation improvement program. I'll turn it over to Catherine here momentarily. Just want to make note, the materials included in the packet include the most recent correspondence between DOT and the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration regarding the findings and corrective action items on the STIP.
All right, yeah, thanks, Jackson. So what you see before you, there's a couple, maybe 3 or 4 pages of a letter from Commissioner Anderson. This letter summarizes what is a 33 or page action plan. And what this is in general is a response to the federal planning findings that they issued for our STIP amendment number 1. With that amendment, they used previous planning findings and stated there's 4 of those items that they still would like to see further along, and then they added some additional items. From the department, however, we contest to a large, almost every one of the corrective actions and nearly all of the recommendations. And in previous correspondence that you can find online, we don't often take the time to go through the work that the department, all of our staff have done, and it wanted to make sure that both of the federal agencies as well as the public reading these materials had the opportunity to look at the information that we do have. So along with that is a request for clarification, because with a lot of these federal planning findings, there'll be statements, they'll say things are incorrect, but we won't get the guidance on what we could do to make it in compliance. And so that's what this is. There's probably 15 items that are questions where we're seeking clarification. So we issued this letter. We got one back on October 23rd, I believe. And that letter was saying Federal Highways, Federal Transit Administration, that they won't be providing that clarification in writing, but that they look forward to future meetings. And for us, what we've seen since February and the 6 months prior to that, trying to get a STIP that was able to be approved, that we needed to have these things in writing. Otherwise, this is a complicated subject, as was brought up earlier. There's just a lot to it. And so being able to have these written out has been, largely helpful for everybody. I am in DC right now. I'm here with Commissioner Don Panone, Program Management Administration Director, as well as Sean Lynch, our state Deputy Chief Lawyer appointed to transportation. And so we're here working through all of these items with the Federal Highways Executive Director and FTA. People are on the same table. We've been going through these action items today, and we're going to do so again tomorrow. So we're very excited about this, just getting some clarification on items throughout this letter so that we can understand, where there's interpretation and where there's law. And all we want to do is be compliant with the law and then be able to have a program that can move forward that serves Alaska. So it is a hefty document, but I would encourage, again, if you can take a look at it, just page through it. Happy to answer questions on this. But what you've seen over the past year have been questions about our fiscal constraint demonstration tables, for example. And we haven't gotten the precise feedback as to how, again, we can make it improved. They provided examples to us, and then their tables don't add up that they're providing to us, and we didn't have greater understanding beyond that what we could do. They talk about advanced construction, and again, we just want to have a document that's compliant. So when we can use advanced construction to obligate the conversion of the advanced construction, when we can move forward with projects without an amendment and be able to use an administrative modification. Those are things that have changed with some new practices over the past year. A lot of that, of course, does relate to the MPOs and the MPA boundary discussion. So look forward to being able to have that on the agenda so we can talk through the MPA boundary updates, as well as any operating agreement updates that were mentioned earlier. So happy to answer questions on this document. Could certainly take a lot of time to go through this, and I think it would be worthwhile, but it might be helpful if you just have questions. And then I do have an update on the next STIP amendment after that, if there are any questions.
Thank you. We're going to see you. I'm sure we have questions. Any board members? I do have one then. What is the deadline again for your compliance with the feds on this matter?
Yeah, there is no deadline at this point. We have our partially approved original STIP, and those findings indicated a number of items needed to be complete ahead of our first amendment. And at that point, they gave us 6 months. We did submit it within that time frame. The other items, are ongoing. And I should say, it is called out in the letter. We believe that those first 4 items have been accomplished. We'd like to see those items resolved. Some of these things are going to be ongoing. Our 3C coordination process, we introduced a document to the technical and policy boards with all 3 MPOs. And there's going to be further work to do as we develop our planning manual, for example. So keeping an open planning finding, may have less value than having more constructive dialogue about what we want that to look like as we coordinate the timing of our tips and steps moving forward.
You say the first four items, you're talking about the second page.
Yeah, those items are documentation of 3C, process, the disposition of public comments, fiscal constraint demonstration, and then transportation performance management, like asset management. The second item, for example, disposition of public comments, we have at this point 1,500 pages of public comments that are available online. And honestly, we're not sure why this was on here in the first place. We talked about it today. This is a resolved item. So some of these will have an update in upcoming weeks as we wrap up the meetings here.
Our concern, of course, is the tip. I
Yes.
want to get the green light on that. Your
Yeah.
thoughts, Justin, on that?
No, I don't think that I do. I mean, just the board needs to be made aware that if there's not an approved STIP, then there's no TIP. So our funding plans are inherently linked together. Our local funding plan, our TIP, is incorporated by reference into the STIP. So we are linked at the hip on this approval.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty positive with where we're at right now. The next amendment, our goal is to have it out for public comment on December 7th. And so that's the update on the STIP. So we've been working with Jackson on the fast HIP updates. He's been, meeting with our staff on where the projects are at and where there's been cost increases or changes in delivery dates. And so same thing, we've been doing that with AMATs. The executive director today made the point again that the tips, they're incorporated into the STIP. The tips they don't approve those separately. So as we move forward, we're going to be more and more in sync with the tips in the STIP. This is what we'd love to see, is that our revenue for the MPO area matches, like our revenue is, maybe it's $20 million, and then on the tip, it's $20 million. So they match, and that's the fiscal constraint congruity that they've been looking for. But this has all been very sudden for all of us to recreate our STIP tip fiscal constraint. I mean, up to February, we've had projects programmed the same way for the last almost 20 years or more. So this sudden shift in how we're programming and the fiscal constraint requirements, the strict level of fiscal constraint that we're being held to, which is a good thing. It's just, I think each iteration, we're getting closer to these documents lining up.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question. You alluded to the discussion of the MPA boundary taking place in January. I was wondering if you could preview that a little bit, what that discussion might look like.
The discussion in January is more of a peer-to-peer exchange. So being able to talk with other state DOTs and other MPOs, what are their best practices and what are they seeing that's working for them in their inner working STIP and tips. For us on the MPA boundary, where that's been left off, we had submitted a letter to the policy board in January requesting time with the technical and policy committees to go through the MPA boundary and some language in the operating agreements. And we're doing that in tandem with items on the tip itself so that we can get the fast tip to meet the regulatory requirements in the CFRs. And some of those are minor things like inclusion of total project cost. So getting all of these things again to line up to ensure that we don't have any further delays where the statements are that we're not in compliance is kind of our priority right now. So same thing as we go through this and getting the MPA boundary updated. We have till about 2026 to have an approved boundary by the governor. So we have a little bit of time, but I know everyone's eager to have that boundary established. So
So
I'm,
the short version of that is there's no movement on the governor signing the expanded boundary. And that we should anticipate it remaining in DOT's eyes where it is.
no, the commissioner has submitted the letter to the policy board requesting that we schedule a meeting at the technical committee so that they can review it and then have that go to the policy board. We haven't been added to the agenda on the technical committee, but we would love to as soon as the committee and the board are ready. But we do need to have just some conversations and be able to work through both the operating agreement and the boundary.
Thank you. I do agree there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, so please, the request is if we can get that as we work through the chair, as the chair is on board, please let's get those things scheduled so it's not lingering. Mhm.
Other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Keith. They had a Dom Pinot for me. I enjoyed working with him when I was legislator down in Juneau. He certainly did good work as the, I think it was admin services. I believe you guys just got an award for your public engagement on your comments for the STIP, right?
Yeah, we did. It was an AASHTO award through Transcom. It was a skills award, for exemplary public engagement, which was
Thank
great.
you. I appreciate that. I remember when there was a lot of good work on putting out the public input for the STIP to let people know where improvements could be. And I was surprised to see the public engagement comment in there too. But so you're now sitting down with federal DOT. Are you getting the clarifications that you need to be on the same page for a lot of these things?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I believe we are. It's very helpful working through some of the misunderstandings that all parties have had, and there are slight misunderstandings and differences of interpretation. But we'll have things in writing. We'll finalize these discussions tomorrow, and then be able to walk away, we believe, with clarity on how we need to submit our amendment, number 2, without a lot of back and forth like we've been having.
Thanks.
So yes,
Thank you. So the MPO boundary change was something I was aware of coming into office. Did that ever make it to the governor's desk? Did it not get off of Commissioner Anderson's desk? And so now you're returning it to us for more of the operation discussion. As we try to, is that correct? It never made it to the governor's desk?
Yeah, that's correct. Before submitting things to the governor's office, again, we need to make sure as the department that we can certify that these items meet the regulations. So part of this was both our operating agreement and the boundary update, needing to refine and have a legal description of the area that was consistent with where the boundary lines were drawn. Some of this is minor stuff that we just need to go through and clean things up a little bit, and then we can submit that to the governor for approval.
Thank you. Follow up on that. So
yeah,
some of it's minor stuff, I'm sure, which is always nice that we can check those things off. Some of them are also probably major things as we try to get money moving on projects. How do we get that boundary approved sooner than later so we can get projects on the street coming up for next summer?
Again, just getting through if you want to it's up to the board. If you'd like to have a conversation and have it scheduled at the next meeting, that would be a fast way. Ideally, letting the technical committee take a look at things and have input and recommendations to the board, policy board would be helpful. But we can also have, as you're coming into this role, we'd love to sit down and just talk through where things are at, where they've been, to ensure that you have access to the information and perhaps can find a way for us to help move things along so we don't have delays. Right now, I think I'm trying to think of where there would be additional delays. But be good to meet. But for sure, it'd be great to have it scheduled at the policy board meeting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Follow up on this a little bit. In the packet for next month, I'm going to ask that this letter that from Ryan Anderson that we're referring to here be included. Along with it is DOT's recommendations for changing the governmental operating agreement, which we talked about earlier in the meeting, that I hope you get copies of here. There is a list of changes throughout the document that they're hoping to make. A lot of these are of the legal nature. I think Mayor Ward met with the borough legal on this briefly, and I think they declined to get involved or something like that.
I don't really want to speak on behalf of the borough attorney, but the issue at hand is that the borough attorney represents the borough. So we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit corporation, so they cannot represent us. They can only represent their own entity. Now, the same would go for the two city attorneys. Through this process, we do have a letter of engagement from an attorney that works for the National Association of NPOs and has a long track record of working for NPOs all across the country. And so we do have a proposal if the board chooses to hire our own legal counsel to take a review of the edits that have been proposed by DOT through us. So that would be, and we do have a section in our budget for attorney consultations on changes to agreements. That budget right now is set at $5,000. That's not sufficient to complete the review of the edits to this agreement. So if the board would like that as an action item at your next meeting to consider hiring outside counsel with NPO expertise to take a look at that, we can add that to the agenda.
When we put this together originally, we had legal from the city, the borough, and the state also had to chime in on it, and it's a rather cumbersome process. The hang up in those years, it's actually over at the borough. They had some real questions on it, but in the end, that was worked out. So the option is, as Jackson says, we can, as an organization, get an attorney, or ultimately, though, you're going to have to be, each entity is going to have to be happy with the changes that come out of the operating agreement from your point of view. So I would imagine that whatever, so you do hire an attorney, whatever attorney we have, that you would probably go to your own legal departments and check that to make sure it's in your best interest also. But in any case, let's put it on the agenda for next month. Brian Anderson had requested that, along with the recommended changes that they have here. Just for my clarification, there's changes that are in red and changes that are in green. What's the difference, do you know?
I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming it's two different editors. I believe Sean Lynch may have been one of the individuals that were providing edits to that agreement. And I don't know if it was Joe Kemp or someone else at the department that provided the other edits. But it's all on the DOT side.
And I would like it
Yeah.
to go to technical maybe in enough period of time so that they can read through it also. It's complex.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
yeah, thank you, Jerry. Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to comment that the changes here are made to get into compliance with state and federal statutes. And there are things right now where we're not in compliance. Perhaps one route we could take too is to see what resources are available through technical assistance, either through federal highways or federal transit. That they do have resources, so this agreement could be provided to somebody there, and maybe there's a way that they could look at it versus the funding to bring someone else in. So that could be one resource. But otherwise, yes, Sean Lynch is a state attorney, but he's our expert on what we need to do to stay in compliance. So he's a great resource as well, and we can try to make availability so that he can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaworth. Deputy Commissioner, I understand, we've got three MPOs in the state now. And is this a boilerplate operating agreement between the three, and are all similar with the, I forget the MATSU acronym, but AMATS, FAST, and the MATSU one? Are they all still fairly similar?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not. They were created at different times. I think it'd be very helpful to have some boilerplate language. We're going through the same process with AMATs on getting the operating agreement compliant and working through the boundary area change. MVP just had their operating agreement updated, but now learning some recent things with our interactions with the federal agencies, we'll probably have some changes that we'd recommend to that agreement too. But I think when we get through this process, our documents should be in solid order.
We just approved the MVP and now we're, it's a good acronym, and now we're looking at changing that one too. Can we, I guess
Yeah.
the technical committee might want all three in front of them so they can compare apples to apples too, to make sure they're similar? That's something,
We can provide that.
that'd be great. Thank
That's a
you.
good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, the world that we're in with our transportation program this year versus a year and a half ago when that agreement was drafted is, frankly quite different. So there may be changes to the operating agreement, but it's minor. I think I shouldn't speak on behalf of our attorney with the MVP agreement, but my understanding is there's minor insertions of references to regulations.
Anyone else? Thank you for the information. I think we'll move on.
Can I do one final thing on the STIP itself for timelines? This be quick. With our STIP on the 7th, December 7th, going out for public comment, anything that we can do for some sort of, I'm not sure where we're at with the amendment process, Jackson, but ensuring that we have the right revenue programmed into that so that we can meet any adjustments that are needed and when the future TIP amendment is ready would be very helpful. Because we want to make sure that there's enough revenue programmed into the MPA to cover the project needs. So you can be thinking about that in the next few weeks would be helpful.
This amendment to public comment, December 7th is the amendment.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else?
Thanks.
Let's go ahead and go to public comments. Anyone in the room here first? Sure. You're very funny. Anyone online wishing to?
Teresa, you're raising your hand.
Hi, Patrice, go ahead.
Might need to unmute. Patrice.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'd like to begin by sighing a relief that we got the letter about our carbon monoxide, and we've been through the process. We cleaned it up. I'm quite hopeful that we'll be able to work on our other air quality problems and clean them up as well. I do hope there will be ongoing monitoring at a baseline level, even though we don't have reports and federal actions that are required. On another note, there's concern in the community about bridge load rates. And two bridges are well within our MPO boundary, and that is the Chena floodplain bridges and the Chena bridge over the Chena River Bridge over the Steese Highway. The Chena floodplains were rated at 49 tons, and Chena River Bridge, I can't remember what it is, but it's quite a lot lower than the 80 plus tons that are going over it. And there are serious concerns about the frequency of very heavy, often excessively heavy loads across these bridges. And the answer is not to rebuild the bridges, but for preferential or overweight use, but to reduce the loads to lawful, safe limits. It's also been brought up in conversation that our state bridge formula is questionable, and maybe it would be helpful if it came more in line with the Federal Highway Administration's formula, which does seem to be a bit safer. Things change when you're under constraint, and it might be the first time we've ever had to deal with constraint, but it's really important that we get the MPO boundary out there and legal. It's my understanding that in November and then December of 2023, that document became available to the governor and to others. And where it's been, I'm not sure. But Citizens for Clean Air and others are talking and visiting with federal agencies. And we're asking them how they can make lawful decisions if they're basing them on inaccurate information. And as long as this old boundary is used, that's inaccurate information. And it's quite likely that that could end in some kind of litigation, because we want the most accurate information and we have to have that in order to plan properly for the community. So with that said, I'm hoping that we can get this done as quickly as possible and get that boundary recognized, because it will be well over a year by the time it gets discussed in January. So I want to say that the DOT presentation on classification of roads was really amazing and helpful. A lot of citizen participation happened. So kudos to you and your ongoing efforts to engage the public and for your award. People really enjoyed the fact that they were able to put in their questions and felt listened to and felt like their questions were answered. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'll say everyone have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks again, Patrice.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone else.
Nope, I don't see anybody else with their hand raised.
Okay, we'll move on. Item 8A, Max Transit Plan Update for Native Human Services Transportation Plan, which is an active action item. Go ahead and get a motion to get it on the floor, and then we can go to public comment.
What do we need the motion to say? I move, MAC Transit Plan update for the Coordinated Human Services Transportation Plan for discussion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from the public on this? Fans?
Are we the public? Or the-
No,
Okay.
they are. We'll close public comments and we'll bring it to the board. Now for discussion with the board. Go ahead. Bob.
I just want to thank the technical committee for their work on this, moving it forward and working with the borough administration and departments here to make sure it's a good and comprehensive plan so that we can get our buses running on schedule. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, you want one schedule.
Yes, I do want them on schedule.
Just a question to the mayor and Mayor Ellen. Are you happy with the results of the plan and the work that we did? Have you had a chance to read it all?
Yes, I did look through it. I briefed through it. It was a long one, but I did brief through it. There was a lot of changes to make, but I think that they're in the right direction. You know, the routes that we need to ensure are there, the input that from the riders looking to return to Saturday service is something that is really important. You know, when you cut routes, it's hard to get them back. People have to find other modes of getting around to work. So making sure that we can get those in place and keep them consistent is going to be certainly a priority of ours going forward. And I understand the director also approved it, although I have not talked to her about it. But she does sit on the technical committee, so I think she did some good work. So yeah, I thought it was a decent document.
And I was reading through them. Apparently, I was wondering why there's two separate plans, why they were not put together, but apparently there's two different puddles of money that they're actually going after. The borough, you have to get the plan done in order to get those funds. Is that correct? Yeah. Anybody else? Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you. Being new to this committee and board, how often would this transportation plan be updated due to the needs and changes of our community?
Historically, it's been about once every 10 years.
Anyone else? Go ahead and call the vote.
Okay.
Start out with, Mr. Cross.
Yes, is this to adopt, recommended adoption? Yes.
Mayor Church,
Yes.
Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cleaver. Yeah. Mr. Olds
Yes.
and Ms. Key.
Yes.
The vote goes down, then I have a comment or such.
Anyway, it passes unanimously. Go ahead, Mayor, you can say.
Mayor Church, it looks like looking ahead in conclusions on page 4 of the plan, it is recommended to review and update every 5 years to respond to community and resource changes. So here we are, and we'll look at 5 years ahead.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
All right, we're gonna move on to item 8B, the North Pole Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Implementation Plan. This is not an action item. I think it's just on here for your information and your comments. Any comments from the board? Seeing none, there's some comments that are included in here which are kind of interesting. They run the gamut from why are you wasting the money, and others who we should only have certain types of chargers. I thought the comments are quite interesting, especially from the users. When you get ready to implement the plan, what type of chargers we would utilize that would be, I think, the best received in the general public, and the location is a big deal too on my list also. Putting them where the majority of the people need it. I gotta think if I own an EV car, and I don't intend to, but if I do own one, I would want the fastest charging facility I could pay to have, rather than sit there for hours and have that thing charged. Thomas, can you?
Yeah, last year, Jackson was able to look up the DOT to find out how many EV cars were in town. I think there's 30 registered. Any update on that?
That's
On one of the boards behind you there. If I can find it.
150, I think.
It's
Just
like
curiosity.
176.
The upside down. 175. I'm sorry, no. 175 in the interior, 156 in our pocket.
Okay.
From the DMV records.
So it's a rapidly growing item.
Well, statistically not much, but yes, it is.
100% year over year.
When I was sitting on Trainer Gate, you know, with a slow down sign, I saw, well, 3 EV cars every morning. So you take a look at that and say to yourself, okay, you got 300 cars for this morning. 1% of them are electric. So it's growing. So hopefully we're in front of this to provide good services for those electric vehicle operators. So.
I saw the new Tesla truck being test driven the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Second Avenue.
Did they stop in your shop?
No, but they stick out like a sore thumb. It's one ugly vehicle.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
They didn't have the pattern on the outside for
No, they were
other
just
testing
kind of-
vehicles. Yeah.
But the way this works, and Jackson, correct me if I'm wrong, this is federal money that's coming through to try and build infrastructure for EV cars. Once they are built, it is to be turned over to a company or the private sector, a nonprofit, whomever, but it's not us. So that the maintenance will be handed off, so it's not an ongoing obligation. For the borough or the city or anybody else, is that correct?
That's correct. That is the intent.
So our job is just to do the best job we can at what type of charge. How many? My big fear on all this is if fuel cells catch on and this whole thing becomes obsolete. But there's some interesting technologies out there that could put this on the back burner. Anything else? Mayor?
Yeah, tracking that federal money, I think is gonna be important here. I think you hit that on the head. Do we have anybody, Jackson, identified to be that person to take these and maintain them?
Yes, there's a company called Recharge Alaska,
Okay.
and they maintain a large group of the chargers down in Anchorage, and they're interested in taking on that maintenance contract for Fairbanks. So
Does-
we've identified one company that I've spoken with.
Does it then matter that we get chargers that match the ones that they have in Anchorage, whether it's the speed or the model, so that they can streamline their maintenance?
The issue with the chargers in Anchorage is that they're not rated 40 below.
Okay,
So, they would likely be a different manufacturer here. The only company that I'm aware of right now that can certify that the chargers will work at 40 below is Flow. And that's the brand that's installed at Golden Valley Electric. So, anyways, there'll be, when it goes out to bid, there'll be specifications. You can't, sole source one thing, but it's gonna have to meet that requirement. And so likely they will be Flow chargers.
thank you.
And they do have experience in those.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Item new business, 9A. Fast improvement program. This is the most interesting part of what we do, in my opinion. When we look at local projects, with the funds that we have. This is an action item also in the agenda we saw earlier here, the technical committee is asking for postponement of this, right?
No.
I thought they said item 9A.
Well, that
They're
related
not-
to, statewide safety targets. The motion that the committee made on this is on page 249, the second paragraph there.
I thought.
So again, it was the numbering on their agenda is different than the numbering on your agenda.
Okay, I need a motion to put this in front of us.
I move that we follow the technical committee's recommendation that we adopt new project priorities as edited and increase the fast improvement program funding for 2025 to $2 million.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. I think that you're referring to page 250. Two 53, the top part there, that's what this is the project. That's what, just to make sure that's what you're reading.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, we're gonna go to public comment first on this. Anyone in the public wishing to comment on the fast planning improvement program?
Is there anyone online?
You don't have anyone?
Um,
Seeing none, public comment is closed. Or any discussion?
I'll take it. Jackson, I was wondering if you could walk us through the changes, the technical.
Yeah, absolutely. So on page 253, everything in red there is a proposed change for 2025, 26, and then our contingency project list. The project manager at DOT is John Atardis. He's been leading the design effort for this program for a number of years now. And what I discussed with both DOT and the city of Fairbanks is that we have some unprogrammed federal funds in federal fiscal year 2025. Our balance right now is about $2 million that needs to be devoted to other projects. We're also though hearing that there's a couple projects that were slated for construction in 2025 that may slide out to 2026. So that might include the Chino River Walk and Dochi Avenue out in North Pole. And so we've got a $2 million hole to fill, and then there might be additional funds on top of that that get freed up here by, say, January. And these will be future board decisions on how to spend to fully program all of that federal money that we have access to. So this proposal is just trying to grab 1 million of that balance and apply it to an existing program. This program traditionally has a very low design effort. It's typically mill and pave of roadways or asphalt paths. It can be signage, but very simple improvements. And so it's a very flexible program that we kind of use. We call it like a slush fund, that as we have additional money available or we need additional money available, we throw it into the program, or perhaps a bid came back high and we need to steal some money from somewhere. It's typically this program. And none of these projects on here are scored by the technical committee or policy board. The way that we select these projects is to get all of our member agencies together, and we try to give each of the entities a little slice of the pie. So we try to give something to UAF and something to city of Fairbanks up to the city of North Pole, up to the borough. It might be on the Parks and Rec side or the school district side, or it might be a rural road service area. So the changes you see in this proposal from DOT, first and foremost for 2025, they did refresh their estimates based on current year bid prices. So that we have a much higher level of confidence with the numbers that are shown there for 2025. And kind of scrolling down some of the additional changes here that you'll see, one in particular, Tesoro Avenue, which is a city maintained street. The original proposal just had, this is a gravel road. The original proposal just had a project to pave that gravel road up to the new driveway for the Max Transit maintenance facility that was just opened here this summer. So that's been revised to pave the entire route of that road at the request of Max Transit. And then for the city of North Pole, what was nominated to us previously was some repairs to both East and West 4th Avenue. As we understand out in North Pole, the repairs to West 4th Avenue were completed this summer. And so East 4th Avenue just remains to be done. But to try to keep North Pole whole in this process here, they identified a section of North Pole High School Boulevard that also needs a repave. And so that has been added so that North Pole's slice of the pie is still there for them. And then from our contingency list on the bottom, this proposal accelerates a repave of a couple of roads in Doyon Estates for the city of Fairbanks, as well as repaving the expressway path on both sides of the expressway, which has a lot of root damage right now. And also with this program, by policy that we've set for ourselves, we try to devote 80% to motorized projects and 20% to non-motorized projects. And so that's why when we're increasing funding for the program, we wanted to put a non-motorized project up there, and the Mitchell Expressway path is a high priority for our advisory committee, and it was already on our contingency list. And then just a couple other changes here in red for 2026. As we understand, the city went ahead and with their own funding, repaved Shivel Street this past summer. So that has been removed as a need for 2026. And then at the very bottom, we have two new projects that we're adding to our contingency list. One is Old Airport Way, which I've spoke to the policy board about in the past. There's simply a request that a shoulder be added to the north side of that road, as there are a couple hotels along Old Airport Way. And there's folks that walk back and forth to Fred Meyer West and Safeway. And there's not really a safe facility for that. So that one was added. It's a low cost project. The right of way is really wide. There's no utility relocations required. Very simple. And then Summit Drive. I've been speaking with that road service area for much of the summer. Summit Drive, a good portion of it is now within our new boundary. It's not yet approved. But they have a sufficient maintenance fund through their mill rate that they can actually pay the 9% match for a repave of their road. So John Notaris did do site visits and did prepare an estimate for that. That's not been approved for construction yet, and that would have to follow approval of the new boundary. But we've added it to the list because for us, it's kind of rare to see a road service area be able to have enough funding to cover that 9% match. We don't get a lot of takers, so we want to make sure that we got a road service area on our list for the future.
We have to have maintenance agreements on all these.
Yes.
Any questions for Jackson? Seeing none, what is the vote?
Okay. Mr. Flavor.
Yes.
Mayor Hawkins.
Yes.
Mayor Bruce.
Yes.
Mayor Church.
Yes.
Mr. Kraus. Yes. Mr. Olds.
Yes.
And Ms. Keith.
Yes.
Passes, thank you. Item 9B, election of chair and vice chair. We have to do every year. Mayor Cruz.
Move to nominate Jerry Clayworth as chair.
Mr. Press.
I would move to nominate Mayor Briar Hopkins as chair.
Okay, seeing that nominations closed. How would you like to do this? Just a show of hands? You want a piece of paper? What would you prefer?
How have we done it in the past?
Show of hands.
One person.
I'm thinking in the past we've had,
Yeah,
well, maybe over 10 years ago, we had two nominations for chair, but it's not
Been a
what we
long
normally
time.
see anymore.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go the other way first. All in favor of Mayor Hopkins?
And then online, you can use your raise hand feature if you want to vote that direction. Or verbally. Can't find that.
Think anything?
Well, I can see Jason, he's not raising his hand.
So am I taking it that there's two votes then? Or
Today, three.
three, I'm sorry, that's right. Mayor Church. Okay, all in favor of myself, I guess.
Yeah, I think they both raised their hands.
Yep. Congratulations and condolences.
Condolences. Yeah.
Thank you, folks. I'll try and do my best.
Sure.
I need nominations now for the vice chair, please. Mr. Cruz.
Where Hopkins.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm gonna say nominations are closed and.
Condolences.
Congratulations, right?
Jay, look forward to working with you on it.
Okay, next item are the check signers. We have to take some people off and add some people. On page 258. We're going to have to remove Bryce Ward, Michael Welch. So as part of the motion, we need to do that, and then we need to add on Dave Cruz, myself, Jackson, probably Mayor Hopkins, because you're close by.
That works.
We're looking for people who are in the vicinity so that Jackson doesn't have to run all over town. Is that enough, Jackson, or you want more? Give us a little?
Well, it says, our policy states 4 members of the board, so, yeah, we're removing 2, so we're looking for 2 additional board members. to serve
Okay,
as
we
chair
need
signers.
another person then. One for Mayor.
Yeah.
Mayor Church.
Is there a specific signature required other, such as the chair? Or is it just any 4 that you get?
No. It doesn't necessarily have to be the chair or vice chair for purposes of check signing. It's just 4 board members.
I'll check.
And every check has 2 signatures, so it's my signature plus a board member.
Okay,
Yep.
so yours is a required signature.
Mine is required, yes.
Okay.
And I need 1 additional board member to sign each check. And
I just feel safer with a singular required signature.
Okay, so I need a formal motion then to remove Mayor Ward, Mayor Welch, add on Mayor Hopkins and Mayor Church.
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Kraus and Mayor Hughes.
We need to do work at a bank for that. Like, we need to go down and show the minutes and all that good stuff.
yes, I have to do all that, yep. And there'll be forms for the check signers to complete. Some people are already in the system of Mount McKinley Bank, so anyway,
It's always,
some are easier than others to add as check signers.
it's a terrible process trying to get that changed over for
Yep.
nonprofits and stuff like that, so.
I'll do that.
Got to be.
Okay, did I get the final motion here? Yes. Go ahead, I'll roll in.
Okay, Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Mayor Church,
Yes.
Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins.
Yes.
Mr. Flavor,
Yes.
Mr. Olds,
Yes.
and Ms. Key.
Yes.
That item passes, thank you. Next item would be D, fast planning 2025 meeting calendar, that's on page 259. Just have one comment on that, the pre-planning, wondering if we could make a column for that as well. Normally, we're going to be at Tuesdays at 2:30. That, right?
Yes.
I don't know, I know Scott takes advantage of that. I don't know how many, we meet separately with some people.
Depends on who becomes a board member and whether or not they would like to do a pre-policy meeting. We do have to follow Open Meetings Act, so we can't have 30 members in the room for a standing meeting. Unless we advertise.
All right. Well, it doesn't need to be on here, but normally it's at 2:30, you know, that. Which I find helpful. Oftentimes. Otherwise, you have to walk in and understand 100 pages on your own, pretty much. I think packets are somewhat overwhelming for some people at times. Do I hear a motion to approve the calendar?
Move to approve the calendar.
Moved and seconded. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Mayor Hopkins,
Yes.
Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Church. Yes. Mr. Kraus. Yes. Mr. Flavor,
Yes.
Mr. Olds,
Yes.
and Ms. Key.
Yes.
Okay, item 11, any other issues coming up that need the board attention? Seeing none, let's just go to policy board comments. Let's go ahead and start with Mr. Olds. Nothing?
Nope.
Captain Keith?
I'll just thank the board for your questions. Please reach out if there's anything we can do to help navigate the STIP and any of the federal planning findings. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Cruz?
Yes, I'm wondering if we could do something in recognition of Mayor Bryce Ward for his service to this board and his very adept leadership in being the chair of a plaque or a resolution or something like that. A very fine gentleman, worked very well. I wonder if there's something, any thoughts, Jackson?
Yeah, we've been bouncing around those ideas, here in the office. So, I guess we'll share our thoughts with the board via email and our
Okay, thank you.
ideas
Okay,
and looking for input as well.
that's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Hoskins?
Thanks for that, Mayor Prue, much appreciated. Did I miss number 10, the informational items, obligations and offsets? Did we bypass that?
I'm sorry. Would you like to hear that?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
thanks.
We will go back.
Yeah, so on page 260 in the packet, shows you our new obligation report for federal fiscal year 2025. For all of the local projects that we fund through our transportation improvement program. You can see the funding that is programmed for them at this time across their different phases. Some of it's funding for design, some of it's funding for planning efforts, some of it's funding for construction. Over 1 month into the federal fiscal year, this report was pulled on October 30th. There have been no obligations of our federal funding for our local projects yet this year. But as part of this, I've got a few projects and project phases just highlighted in yellow for the board's attention. Starting at the top there, 4th Avenue reconstruction. During our next amendment to our transportation improvement program, we're going to be removing that project for our funding plan because it was built this past summer underneath a separate DOT project. And then for Cowell Street, which has been a hot topic the last couple months, there was 500,000 that was not obligated last federal fiscal year, so we're indicating that as a carry forward. I have had communications from both DOT headquarters staff and Commissioner's office staff that obligation will occur. without having to reduce our program in 2025 by 500,000. And then there's a few projects, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, that their construction may slip from 2025 up to 2026. And so I've highlighted these here. That includes Dochi Avenue out in North Pole, as well as the Chena Riverwalk project. And then on the next page, I've expanded this obligation report to our air quality fund categories, so that the board is more informed about how these are moving forward. There are a couple projects that actually were awarded 2023 funds that have not yet been started. However, with these air quality funds, we have a 3-year period of availability to use those. So I'm just indicating which ones are delayed, and that there's a plan by DOT to obligate those funds this year using $23 or $24. So just bringing that to your attention. The next page, page 262, this is our offset list. Of course, it's blank at this time, but for our new board members, to explain what offsets are, this is when typically when projects are closed out and there's any remaining funds within those projects, it returns to us as an offset to use on other projects within our funding plan. Also, sometimes we will put a project out to bid and bids come in low, that difference will come back to us as an offset, so that we don't lose any of the federal funding that was sub-allocated to us. So we typically get a handful of offsets each year that we use for increases as they arise over the course of the year. And then page 263, I keep track of our pending de-obligations or offsets for project closures. And so I know that we have a couple projects that we're going to be closed out in this federal fiscal year, that there may or may not be a balance for that to receive offsets, but I try to track those project closures so that when they are closed, if there's any funding left over, we can add it to our offset list for the board's use.
Thank you. So this plan, these couple pages, what would not happen if we can't get a STIP agreed to, correct? This funding is, this tip, what would not happen for this coming year? Or just.
Yeah, if we don't have an approved STIP or an approved TIP, these obligations can't. I think currently we have a partially approved STIP. And our latest administrative modification to our local funding plan has been incorporated into that document.
So some of it could go through, some of it
Yes.
wouldn't. Okay. And then the CMAQ money, the one for the Chena River Walk Stage 3, that was the one that was in the paper the other day.
Yes,
And is that only available for construction? Can we use that for purchase of right of ways or anything?
that funding can be used, yes, for purchase of right of way.
Thank you.
Mayor Cruz.
Now I saw $5,900,000 on Yankovich Road.
Mhm.
Is that really gonna happen? Yeah, I remember I was on the planning commission in 2010. We're talking about it. Now, look at the big smile on on Kellen there. Is that really gonna happen? I mean, are we all holding hands and kumbaya? And this goes.
Kumbaya.
My understanding is that it's going to happen. I don't know if it'll be built this summer or next summer. I don't have that information yet. I think there's still a little bit of right-of-way acquisition to complete.
I-
Get that out to bid.
My final comment is, government is a practice of persistence. And this has been a needed project for 15 years. So the persistence that you've practiced is very good. Thank you.
I'll follow up on that. When I was a legislative aide, we were working on this. I think I predate 2010 on it too. Trying to get a bike path down there for sure. It was something we were working on back then. Moved it over to Chena Small Tracks. Got one there, but it is much needed because that is a skinny road. So thank you and best of luck to all of us. That'd be a wonderful advancement as there's new subdivisions going in there all the time. And a heavily tourist road too. There's a lot of big buses that drive down that road to get to Lars, the Mustang farm.
What else? I think there's 3 properties on Yankovich that they're going after legally now because they didn't get buy-in by those property owners. One of them was in my shop the other day complaining. It goes back to when you build a bike path, do you take it off-road or you incorporate it on the road itself? And I am a strong believer of incorporating it on the road because you can maintain it so much better in the wintertime. You can plow it for the bicyclists that are serious. I've seen so many mishaps or near mishaps on the separated bike path and owners, in houses, residents drive across it and almost hit the bicycle. They don't look. And, that's one of my biases. I like on the road, and I think that project could have gone a lot quicker instead of midnight. Yeah, when I got on this body in 2010, it was still being preached on. So 14 years later, kind of like Steve's Third Street over there across the river. How long that took. Any other comments there? And now we get the policy board members that you were there, I think, and anything else, Mayor Hopkins?
No, sir.
Mayor Turk?
Just happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a good meeting. I look forward to this next year working with you all.
I apologize for calling you Tom. I went to school with a Tom Crash. Do you know him by any chance?
Pretty well. He taught me.
You do. I try not to do that. We're at adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Any objections? We're adjourned.